Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video we'll be taking a deep dive into the Sylvaneth for WARCRY. We'll be using the WARCRY Sentinels of Order supplement book, and in that book we'll find out all about the Sylvaneth, find out what they're doing in the 8 points, and also how they fit into the narrative of WARCRY and how they interact with some of the other warbands, especially Chaos, which dominate the 8 points. And then once we've done that, we'll look at all the fighter abilities and the leader abilities, and we'll be going through every single fighter card that's in the book, looking at all the different fighters and leaders available. And as we go through the video, I'll be showing you where you can pick these up, how much they are, and we'll also look at some of the other models available from Games Workshop and see how we can proxy them for other miniatures, and also show you how to use these really big ancient tree lords. Woe betide those who profane the forests and stoke the wrath of the Sylvaneth. These creatures are the children of Alriel and the guardians of her sacred places. When roused to fury, their vengeance is terrible to behold. Few beings despise the 8 points with as much intensity as the Sylvaneth. It's everything they loathe made manifest, a once verdant land twisted beyond recognition. Its forests have buckled and writhed under the touch of chaos, its soil is ripe with the skulls of the countless slain, and its rivers have turned from sparkling streams to thrashing torrents of tormented soul essence. For the Sylvaneth, to take a quest in the Bloodwind spoil is to risk martyrdom of the most grisly kind, but they will do so fiercely when their mother goddess demands it of them. The majority of these quests involve vengeance or recovery, for the Sylvaneth do not fight for sheer joy or simple territory. Warbands may be charged with securing relics that brim with life magic or recovering the stolen lamentary of elder forest spirits, ensuring that future generations of their people may prosper. Meanwhile, those chaos warlords who fought in the War of Life or seek to use the corrupting powers of Varanite to wreak terrible perversions upon nature might believe themselves safe from retribution, only to find that the woods have come alive with flashing talons and murderous eyes. It's a great introduction to the Sylvaneth and how they fit into WARCRY, so now let's get started looking at all the different fighters available, and any of the fighters with the Sylvaneth Rumark will be able to use the fighter ability, and any leaders will be able to use this leader ability. So I'll go through these two abilities first, and then we won't have to do it for every single fighter, because we know that if they have either of these Rumarks, that they'll be able to use these abilities. Okay, let's start with a fighter ability, and this is a double called Draw from the Spirit Song. Remove a number of damage points allocated to this fighter equal to half the value of this ability, rounding up. So a nice simple double, and this is going to kind of let them use the energy of the earth to replenish those wounds and to make a recovery. And this is an ability that kind of gives you a good idea of the narrative for the Sylvaneth and how they work. So this is going to play into the tactics as well. We know that they can get these damage points back if they lose them, and so that's really good and a great ability to get started with. So this is for anyone. This could be a fighter or a leader, as long as they've got that Sylvaneth Rumark. And then any of the leaders with the leader Rumark and the Sylvaneth Rumark can use this quad called Envoy of the Everqueen, and this is the only ability that is available to all the leaders. Until the end of the battle round, add half the value of this ability, rounding up, to the toughness and strength characteristics of friendly fighters while they are within 6 inches of this fighter. So another one that's kind of building into that narrative. These can be a real strong warband, and using this quad and having the leader close and within 6 inches of their fighters can really add to the toughness and strength of all the fighters around them. So this is a really great ability, really setting the scene. They can recover from injuries, and they can really increase their toughness and strength if need to. Those abilities taken care of, let's start with our first fighter, and this is our first leader called the Arch Revenant, and this is an amazing model, and for £22.50 that's the RRP. This is going to be a great addition to any army or warband, and I think this is a perfect leader. We've got some great abilities, a great looking model, and some really good statistics as well. So if you like the look of this one, this is £22.50, and while it seems a lot for one figure, especially for WARCRY, I think this has got to be well worth it, and one that's on my list to get for sure. And this one is going to be our highest points model or leader, and at 250 points we're going to get a movement 10, toughness 4, and can take 25 wounds. This one has also got the fly rune mark, so with that huge movement 10, you can also fly, which is really great. We've got a rune mark for a leader ability we haven't seen yet, and we've got the leader rune mark and the Sylvaneth rune mark, so we know she's going to get those abilities we saw previously. And for the weapon, this spear is a range of 2, making 4 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. So to get started, this is a brilliant model, and I think the stats are really great. Not taking too much damage, but don't forget we've got that double to replenish some of those damage points. But that movement 10 is great, and so are the attack statistics as well. But she's going to come with that extra leader ability rune mark, and this entitles her to use 2 extra abilities. So of all the leaders, this is the one that is going to give you most of the abilities, and I think is a really perfect leader, and this is one I would choose every day. Perfect. So the first leader ability that she can use is a double called Zephyr Bites Tail Pincers. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter and roll a dice. On a 3 to 4, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter. On a 5 to 6, allocate a number of damage points to that fighter equal to the value of this ability. So we've seen this ability quite a lot throughout some of the warbands, and a nice way just to do a little bit of extra damage. And for a double, it's pretty good. And we got to be within 1 inch though, so she's got to get up close. But she's also got this other ability, a triple, called Call to Battle. Until the end of the battle round, add 1 to the attack's characteristics of attack actions that have a range characteristic of 3 or less made by visible friendly fighters while they are within 3 inches of this fighter. So this is really great. Again, if she's close with her fighters, her friendly fighters, as long as they're within 3 inches and visible, then they get this brilliant ability where they can add 1 to their attacks characteristics, as long as that range is less than 3. And so there's a good chance with the different fighters that we go through that they will have that range characteristic of less than 3. And I think that the Sylvaneth are good when working together and sticking pretty close. And this is going to encourage us to do that and play that in our tactics. So there we go. Those are the 2 extra abilities and a really great start for this warband. Our next fighters and leaders are this set of Kernel Hunters, and they're £35 for these 3 really great models, and you can build them in 3 different variations, and these will be 3 leaders, and you can choose between the sai, the sword and the bow, but you can also make them as regular fighters as well. So let's do the leaders first, because this set is going to give us those 6 different fighter cards, and with the leaders you're going to see that each of the different Kernel Huntmasters are going to have pretty similar statistics. So they're all going to have a movement 4, they're all going to have a toughness 4, and they can all take 35 wounds. They've both, all 3 have got the leader rune mark and 1 other rune mark for an ability we haven't seen yet, and that's not a leader ability but a fighter ability. And we'll go through that in a little while. Points wise, we've got for the sai is 240 points, the Huntmaster with the Kernel Greatsword is 230, and the Kernel Greatbow is 240. So all pretty similar there, but it's the weapon stats that really kind of put these guys apart, and this is going to depend on how you want to play. You could just include like 1 leader of these 3, of this trio, and maybe have the other 2 as fighters, or you could just use 1 in your warband and not worry about the other 2 at all, or you could have all 3 with the same weapon. It's entirely up to you. So you've got lots of options here. If you like causing a lot of damage when you have a successful hit, then the Huntmaster with Kernel Scythe is probably a good choice, because he's got a weapon range of 2, can make 4 attacks, strength 4, and deals 3 to 6 on a crit. So that's really great. But then you've also got the Kernel Greatsword, who can get a little bit closer with a weapon range of 1, and he's got 5 attacks though, still strength 4, and only deals 2 to 5 on a crit. So not as much damage if you are successful, but you can make more attacks. But then on top of that, if you want to play more of a range game, you've got the Huntmaster with Kernel Greatbow, and he's got a range of 3 to 20, 3 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. So really great stats for a ranged weapon. And if he gets up close, he's also got the option of a weapon range of 1, making 3 attacks, strength 3, dealing 1 to 3 on a crit. So that's not very high. You really want to use that one for the range for sure. And I really like this guy. For me, he's going to be like in my warband, certainly. I probably wouldn't use the leader option though. I'd go for the regular fighter. So let's take a look at those now. When we use these as regular fighters, these are called Kernel Hunters now instead. And you'll see that the points have come down a fair bit. It's pretty much like 40 or 50 points less per model. But you still get to keep quite a lot of the statistics. I mean, their movement is 4, their toughness is 4, and they can take 30 wounds. They can certainly take a lot of damage. They've got the same rune mark for the ability that we're going to see in a little while. And then if we look at the Kernel Hunter with the Kernel Sai, he's still got that range of 2. He can make 3 attacks though, strength 4, dealing 3 to 6 on a crit. So he can still deal that huge amount of damage, but it's just 1 less attack. So for that 50 points less, you're only getting really 1 less attack, no leader ability, and instead of 35 damage points you can take, it's 30. So there's not a huge amount of difference. I think I would go with just a regular Kernel Hunter over the Huntmaster. Unless I was using them as my main leader. So I think, for 190 points, this is pretty good. And if we look at the other two as well, we've got the Hunter with Kernel Greatsword, only 180 points. He's got that, still 30 wounds. He can make 4 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit with a weapon range of 1. That's really great. So 180 points, this is a great addition. And if you want to include the Kernel Greatbow to have that range, he's still got the range of 3 to 20, only 2 attacks though instead of 3, but it's still strength 4, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. So that's not bad at all. So whether you choose to have them as Huntmasters or Kernel Hunters, you're going to get some really great stats, and they all get that ability as well. So let's take a look at what that ability is and see how this adds to the decision or whether or not you'd include these in your warband. And this is a double called Trample Underfoot. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter and roll a number of dice equal to the value of this ability. For each 4+, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter. So this is great. Already for a double, this is a really good ability, and I think potentially to do some serious damage here is, there's a pretty high potential. So if they get 5 or 6 as their value ability, then they could roll 5 or 6 dice, and for every 4+, they're simply going to allocate 1 damage point to the fighter. So some great odds of getting some damage in there. And again, it's a double, so there is a really good chance you're going to get high ability values for it. So I really like that, and this really makes those Kernel Hunters great value from 180 to 200 points each. And if you choose a leader, you can use it for them too. If the Arch Revenant or Huntmasters aren't for you as a leader, then you could choose the Branch Wraith, and at 180 points, she's got a movement of 6, a toughness of 3, can take 22 wounds. We've got another leader ability, rune mark, that we haven't seen yet, and this one's got 2 different weapon options. One is a ranged weapon with a minimum range of 3, maximum 7, and this is 2 attacks, strength 3, dealing 3 to 6 on a crit. And then if you get up close, it's a weapon range 1, making 3 attacks, strength 3, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. So this is quite interesting. At first it seems like your kind of typical mystical figure, leader figure with those stats, but that second one has got the chance of doing a little bit of damage too with a 2 to 4 on a crit. So this could be quite an interesting leader, and if you want to go with some dryads, I think she would fit in really well, and we'll see some dryads later on. But let's see what this new ability is and what that flaming skull rune mark's going to give her. And this is a triple leader ability called Blessing of the Forest, and for this we simply remove 1 damage point allocated to each friendly fighter within 6 inches of this fighter. So this is great. They don't have to be even visible. As long as they're within 6 inches of the fighter, you can just simply take 1 damage point away. So that's really good. So she's like almost like you could look at her as a healer, I suppose, with that ability. And she's also going to get the main leader ability that we went through at the beginning, and can use the draw from the Spirit Song fighter ability too. If you like the look of the Branch Wraith, then she's going to come in at £10. So for £10, you get a pretty unique leader, and I think it would be hard to replicate this one from any of the other sets, so I think this would be a decent buy at £10. And another leader option you've got is a Branch Witch, and this one is 180 points too, and it's got movement 6, strength 3, and can take 22 wounds, so exactly the same as the Brunch Wraith, but this time we've got the Mystic Rune Mark for the leader ability, so a new leader ability we haven't seen. The first weapon is a ranged magic weapon, so it's 3 to 7, 2 attacks, strength 3, dealing 3 to 6 on a crit. Pretty much the same as the Brunch Wraith, but then if you get up close, this one can make 2 attacks instead of 1, and that's, 3 attacks, but it's a range of 2 instead of a range of 1, and that's strength 3, dealing 1 to 4 on a crit. So again, nice normal stats for a mystical kind of leader, but let's see what this ability is, and this one that she's going to come with is a double called Swarm of Spites. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of this fighter and roll a number of dice equal to the value of this ability. For each 4+, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter. So this is pretty much similar to the ability we saw Trample Underfoot, but now, this time, it's a ranged attack. So this can be any visible enemy fighter within 6 inches. So this gives us a bit of flexibility, keeps her kind of out of danger a little bit and back, maybe sending the other fighters forward. And so that's a pretty interesting double, and you're certainly going to get a good chance of getting a high value for this one. And if you like the Brunch Witch, she's a little bit more, £15, but another great option for a unique leader. Now we're moving on to another box set, and that is the Dryads, and they're going to come in at $27.50, that's the RRP, but I'll put links to all these for Element Games in the description below, and that's going to save you up to 20%, so have a look at that at the end of the video. And from this set, you can make them all as Dryads, or you can make a couple of Brunch Nymphs if you wanted to, and with the Brunch Nymphs, it's got kind of, these are the 2 different images that they've got on their website, so you can paint them and add different additions to them, however you like. But as long as they stand out from the rest and your opponent's happy that they can tell the difference, then you can make any of them a Brunch Nymph. And so the Brunch Nymph as a leader is pretty low. It's not the lowest leader points though, but it's coming in at 145 points with a movement 5, toughness 3, taking 20 wounds. And with a weapon, it's a range of 1, 4 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. And we've got an ability rune mark that we haven't seen yet, but that's going to be a fighter ability that we'll go through in a little while. And so that's another leader option from this set. And you could buy this set and make a complete warband out of it if you wanted to. And then with those Dryads, they would come in at 70 points. They'd have a movement of 5, toughness 3, and they can take 10 wounds. Their weapon, again, is a range 1, 4 attacks, strength 3, dealing 1 to 3 on a crit. So you can see they're making lots of attacks here with their kind of branch-like arms, and so they're really getting stuck in. But let's see what this ability is going to be like both for the leader and the fighters. They get the same ability, and this is a triple called Enrapturing Song. Pick a visible enemy fighter within a number of inches of this fighter equal to the value of this ability. Until the end of the battle round, add 1 to the attacks characteristics of attack actions made by friendly fighters with both the Sylvaneth rune mark and the Scout rune mark that target that fighter. So this is a real kind of swarm ability, and using these Dryads is a great way to really overpower an enemy fighter. And I think definitely some Dryads in a warband would be really cool just to make use of this triple ability here. But they already get a load of attacks, so, 4 attacks already, but now we can add 1 other to them. And if you've got 3 or 4 of them all close enough to attack one of those enemy fighters, the enemy fighter you've chosen, then you could certainly do some serious damage. So for an ability, this is really great. I really like this one, really fun, and kind of you could really build this into your narrative for sure. And this would be a great way to add some cheap fighters to your warband. Next up, we got another set which you can build as Tree Revenants or Spite Revenants, and this will also include 2 leaders, a Scion or a Shade Stalker. So loads of options here, but you're only going to build 5 miniatures all together, and this set's £27.50, which seems a little bit high considering they're not big, they're regular size, but really interesting characters to have. And first we'll cover the Tree Revenants and the Scion, and the Scion is the leader. If you chose the Tree Revenants as your leader, he would be called a Scion, and he's coming in at 120 points. He's got a movement 4, toughness 3, can take 16 wounds, And with his weapon, it's a range of 1. He's making 4 attacks, strength 3, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. And he's got an ability we haven't seen yet. Again, this is a fighter ability, so both the Scion and the Tree Revenants will be able to use that, and we'll cover it in a second. But for 120 points for a leader, this guy's really low value, and this is the lowest value leader for the Sylvaneth, and possibly for many of the warbands available, actually. So if you wanted to choose this guy as your leader, you could certainly have a lot more fighters, and you could really go to town on Dryads and Tree Revenants. And you can see here, the Tree Revenants are coming in at just 50 points, so really low, with a movement 4, toughness 3, taking 8 wounds. They've got a weapon range of 1, can make 3 attacks, strength 3, dealing 1 to 3 on a crit. So they're not going to do a huge amount of damage, not that many attacks, but you could have a lot of them for sure. But let's see what this ability is, because at 50 points, they're going to get this ability too. And this is a triple called Walk the Spirit Paths. Remove this fighter from the battlefield and set them up anywhere on the battlefield floor more than 5 inches from any enemy fighters. So here we go. This is a great ability. A triple, you can literally put them anywhere on the battlefield, but they have to be more than 5 inches from enemy fighters. So if you're thinking of using this ability to maybe pinch a objective, then that's going to be tricky, because they do have to stay back 5 inches. And also, with it being such a low point value, it's only 50 points. If you're going to move them closer to an enemy, you know, with their toughness and wounds they can take, they're not going to last very long. But this could potentially be a good way to get them out of the fight, maybe retreat and set them up, or even help put them closer to another friendly fighter and help them in their fight. So that's one great option. But the next ones are the Spite Revenants, and you can choose to build this 5 as a Spite Revenant or as their leader, which is a Shade Stalker. And I think from this set it's really good, because you can make some Scions and some Shade Stalker, some Spite Revenants and some Tree Revenants. So you can really mix up, even though there's only 5 models, you can have potentially 4 different fighter types from that one set. And if you choose the Shade Stalker as a leader, or if you use them as a hero, then it's just low again at 140 points with a movement 4, toughness 3, taking 16 wounds. We've got that Screaming Skull rune mark, so an ability we haven't seen yet, and that's going to be a fighter ability, so the Spite Revenants are also going to get that. And this one's got a weapon range of 1, can make 5 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. So really high number of attacks we're seeing throughout the model so far, and this is really great. I think for 140 points, you do get quite a bit here, but if you chose to make them as Spite Revenants, they're going to come in at half that, at 70 points, with a movement 4, toughness 3, taking 8 wounds. They've got a weapon range of 1. They can still make a decent 4 attacks, strength 4, dealing 1 to 3 on a crit. So they're not going to put a lot of damage out here, but with a strength 4, it could be pretty useful. But they've also got that ability for that Screaming Skull, which is again great for a 70-point fighter. So let's see what that ability is next. And that ability is a double called Shrieking Terror. Pick a visible enemy fighter with a number of inches of this fighter equal to the value of this ability and roll a dice. On a 3+, until the end of the battle round, that fighter cannot make move actions or disengage actions. So this is an interesting ability as well. You know, it's a visible enemy fighter, and the distance is decided by the value of the ability. And just on a 3+, they're not going to be able to move or make disengage actions. So I think for that ability, it would be interesting to include maybe a Spite Revenant in your warband. For 70 points is pretty low, and that gives you a really interesting ability to use on one of the bigger, tougher fighters, or maybe one of the enemy fighters that can travel a lot of distance. So that's really cool, and that brings us to the final card of all the fighter cards in the Sylvaneth warband that are available to them, but we still got a few models to go through yet, so let's take a look at those now and see how we can use them in Warcry 2. And here we're going to go through 5 models. So the first one is Alarielle the Everqueen. Really stunning model. This is crazy, a lot going on here. We've also got Dryka Hammerdreth, really interesting, looks a lot like a massive Shade Stalker. And then we've got the Tree Lord, Spirit of Durtu, and the Tree Lord Ancient. So we can use all 5 of these models as a particular fighter if we kind of look at some of the additions in the Warcry supplement book, the Sentinels of Order book. And if we look at one of the challenge battles called Vault Guardians, you'll see that there's an Ancient Guardian fighter card included, and this is meant to be one of the adversaries in that challenge battle. This is on page 108, but you can see that we've got all the statistics here that we could use as a fighter in our own warband, and I'd say that because the only thing that's missing is the points value, I'd say if we're treating this as kind of a monster or gargantuan fighter, then we should put this at around 300 to 315 points. And for those points, you're going to get quite a lot for your money. And I think this would be a great addition if you're playing a narrative campaign and you want to kind of get up to those 1400 points, that maximum that you can get. Then this would certainly be something to include, and maybe play your own Vault Guardian challenge battle. And then if you're successful, you can use the fighter card then and introduce one of the larger models. And, you know, this is going to come in at taking a huge 50 points of damage with a toughness of 5. We got the Gargantuan Rumark, so we're going to be able to use some monster abilities with that. We've got 2 weapons. The first is a range weapon, which is the minimum 3, maximum 7, making 2 attacks, strength 3, dealing 3 to 6 on a crit. Now if we get too close, we've got that other one, the weapon range of 1, making 4 attacks, strength 5, and then the hits and critical hit damage is all depending on how many damage points have been allocated to the fighter. And that's where this damage table comes in. So the more damage points that are allocated to this fighter, the less they can move and the less damage output they can give. So for example, if they've only received between 0 and 16 damage points, then they can make a movement of 4, and their damage output is 4 and 8 on a crit. And then once they start getting 17 to 32, that movement goes down to 3, and so does the damage output, goes down to 3 for a hit, 6 for a critical hit. And then finally, once they get above 33 damage points, their movement comes down to 2, and then the damage output is 2 on a hit, 4 on a critical hit. So, you know, you don't want these to get their too many damage points allocated, certainly not soon anyway in the battle, because you want to keep that damage output high. But I think this would be a great use of all those big models. So if you've got an Age of Sigmar army, this is one way you can start using them in Warcry now, and it would certainly fit in with the narrative, and it would certainly fit in with the stats provided in this Vault Guardians challenge battle. And then for the abilities for that fighter, they're not going to have the Sylvaneth Rumark, so they won't be able to use those abilities, but they can use the monster abilities, which are on page 7 of the Sentinels of Order Warcry book. So you can pause the screen and see those, or take a look in the book if you have it. And these are the abilities that are available to any monsters that are featured in that book. And there's another set of miniatures you can buy on the Games Workshop website and Element Games, which is the Yarathis Guardians. I can never say it right. But this is great value. This is from models from Underworlds, but you can buy them separately as just the models, £15 RRP. You don't get all the Underworlds cards or anything like that, but you do get these unique and really awesome models. And I think these are great. They look stunning, and I'd love to have these in my warband, and I'll certainly be painting them in a style that ties them in with the warband I've already got. I would say, whatever warband you play, have a look to see if there's an Underworld set that matches it, and then see if you can buy the miniatures separately, or even buy the Underworld set and get playing that too, because it's a great game. But I think the Underworld's miniatures are perfect for Warcry. You get some unique miniatures that are great as heroes and things like that, and I think they just look stunning. Then we've got this set of endless spells for the Sylvaneth, and these are quite interesting, a bit weird. I don't know how we'd use these. Maybe use that serpent looking kind of worm thing as some kind of monster, maybe look at the monsters that are included in the Sentinels of Order book, but really interesting set. I'm sure you could build something around it. And then you've got the Start Collecting set for Sylvaneth, and that's going to include this big Tree Lord, a set of Dryads, and one of the leaders, I think it's the Branch Wraith, and so you're going to get a nice set there. Going to save a bit of money. You know, you get that really big model as well, which is cool. But for me, I think there's many other fighters that I'd like to include in my Sylvaneth warband, and they don't seem to be featured in this. So for me, I think I'd rather build it separately. But this might be a good place to start. You know, you're going to get some cool models, and you're going to get that big Tree Lord, which is awesome. Another set which is brilliant, which I got, is the Sylvaneth for Warcry. They sell out really quickly though, but if you can pick it up at your local game store or even on eBay, somewhere like that, then this could be well worth getting. You get the Kernel Hunters, a set of 3, and then you get the Scion Shade Stalker, Tree Revenant, Spite Revenant set of 5 miniatures too. So you get quite a lot there and really great value for money. Also includes the tokens and the fighter cards, which are really great. I'll be adding an Arch Revenant as a leader for this set that I've got, and I might leave it there. I may even pick up a few Dryads as well. So there we go, that sums up all the miniatures available on the Games Workshop website for Sylvaneth and how we can use them in Warcry. And if you want to see how I'd put together a Sylvaneth warband for a narrative campaign, then I've done a separate video on that. That's up on the channel, and that talks about all the different points values and different combinations and really goes deep on that side of building a warband for a narrative campaign. But I'll also put links to Element Games in the description below, where you can save 20% or up to 20% on the RRP of all the sets we've gone through today. And although it's an affiliate link, it doesn't cost you anything extra. In fact, it can save you that money, and I get a small commission for every sale made through the link, and I can use that to make loads more videos like this. So thanks so much for that support. I really appreciate it. If you like this kind of content and would like to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page, and thanks to everyone who's joined so far. It's really awesome. We hang out on Discord, talk about the hobby, share ideas and help each other out, and you'll get some perks there that you're not going to find anywhere else. So I'll put a link in the description, and it'll be great to see you there. I hope you enjoyed the video. I think the Sylvaneth are a great warband to put together, and although there's not that many different fighters and models available to them, I think the ones that are available are really good and can make a really interesting set of fighters. So thanks so much for watching. Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games.